Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the new show, Operation New Hope, where we're going to be talking about how we're going to bring up our future generations. Now, today I have a very special guest with me. He is a very big entrepreneur and also head runner of the show Seven Figure Millennials. And without further ado, I'll introduce you guys to Brandon Fong.
Evan, super great to be here. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming on to the show. Really appreciate it. So, how are
Of
you doing
course, I've been
today?
looking forward to it. I've been looking forward to this, man. So this is the icing on top of the cake. Glad to be here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to have you here. Now, Brennan, if you don't mind telling some of the viewers about yourself, a little bit of what you do and a little bit of your background and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, sure. I think it always helps to give a little bit of context of my backstory. So I think the story that when you and I met, you had kind of heard this story. I'll share it, but I want to take everyone back that's listening or watching. I want you to imagine that you are at Wisconsin Hills Middle School. So you're sitting in a classroom and you're observing, and you see that all the students are sitting and staring at the digital clock, and everybody's waiting for the bell to ring for that next minute, because when that hits, everybody gets to go to lunch. So that bell finally rings. All 30 students jump to their feet and they make a beeline to the cafeteria. But there's one kid that's kind of hanging out behind everyone, that's taking his sweet time, that's packing his bags. And that kid was me. And I usually keep a picture on my desk. I don't have it right now, but I guess I'll just describe. I used to have like Bugs Bunny teeth. I had kind of like nerdy looking glasses. And you're probably wondering, like, why would any sixth grader ever procrastinate on going to lunch? And the reason why is because when I would go through the checkout line, I'd have my plastic tray with the curly fries or chicken nuggets, whatever was on sale. And as I would go through the checkout line, my heart would start beating faster and faster. So I would watch, Matt go through and he would get 2 desserts. So his total for his meal would be $5. And then Kate would go through and it would be $4 or whatever. And then it was my turn and I would type in my student ID 156403. I'll never forget it. And it would show up on the screen, Brandon Fong, free lunch, $0.00. And the thing that I didn't mention in the beginning is that the school district that I went to was a relatively wealthy school district. And so I felt like I was one of the only kids on that free lunch program. I recently actually went back to my old high school area, and it's like most of the kids for their 16th birthday were getting Audis or Mustangs or whatever it was. And I was just embarrassed by the fact that I was on the free lunch program. And so that was a really painful experience for me, but I have the world's greatest parents. And they always encouraged me to learn how to connect with incredible people if I wanted to get further in life. So that moment was actually what inspired me to start my entrepreneurial journey and to kind of change things for myself. And so I can share a little bit more, but that's where I came from. And the short version of the story is that my parents introduced me to my first ever mentor, who, Kevin, I know you know as well, Brenda Campbell, and she kind of showed me the ropes and taught me what it was like to connect with people. And so by the time I had graduated college, I already lined up my first job, leveraging the power of connection, and had connected with a really successful entrepreneur. His name was Jonathan Levy, and I ended up running his marketing for 3 years. And during the time I was on the team, we added over 100,000 students to our online courses, 1.5 million downloads to the podcast. And Jonathan got into this exclusive group called Genius Network, where there was like all these high level 7, 8, and 9-figure entrepreneurs. And he decided to bring me to those meetings as well. And so I got to be kind of like a part of those really high level meetings starting at age 22. And I just felt really, really blessed to learn very early age that there were so many people that were incredibly successful, but they were still miserable on the inside. They had all the external things, the stuff that I thought I wanted. They had all the cars, all the toys, all the businesses, but they still felt that level of unfulfillment. And so that's kind of what inspired me to start the show, and the movement that I'm creating right now. And the work that I do is all about how can we build a business where we prioritize our happiness, health, and relationships. And so, entrepreneurship is a journey. It allows you to show a lot about yourself. And so I'm really intentional on building my first 7-figure business right now, but I'm being very intentional about building in alignment with my values and sharing what I learn along the way. So I can fill in anything where you want to fill me in, but I've been talking for a while. So I'll pass it back to you, Kevin.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the introduction. I think it really helps viewers get a really good idea of really your journey from being, someone on like the free or reduced lunch all the way up to kind of being the guy buying the lunch. Um, so And I think, and I really like your points, like even though you do build yourself up and you do become successful, there's still some elements that are even bigger than those material things that you get when you become successful. Like the money and all that stuff is cool and all, but what is there that is beyond that? And that actually was reason for me starting up the podcast the way I did. It was because even beyond like our entrepreneurs finding happiness in themselves, how can they also help our younger generations to find happiness within themselves, and
Hmm.
so on and so forth. And so that'll actually lead me to my first question for you. What do you think our current generation could be doing in order to help ensure that our future generations are better off than us?
Hmm. It's a great question. I think really underrated skill set that's not like a hard skill set or anything like that, but it's just curiosity. I think that we live in a society where lots of our social media does our thinking for us. If you spend a lot of time on social media, it's constant algorithms feeding you what you think, but
Yeah.
it's kind of become this lost art of just being ridiculously curious about something that you're passionate about and going down the rabbit hole and learning more and more about that. That'll lead you to connecting with incredible people and pursuing a journey. So if I could share one skill set, it would be curiosity, because I think that's kind of like the quote unquote the first domino, that like if you knock over that one domino and you're really curious and you kind of find something that you're really passionate about, whether or not you pursue that long term, if you're constantly in a state of wonder and awe and possibility and figuring out what's possible, that's kind of like what I think I live for. And what I think is so healthy is that if you can find that one thing that really just drives you, it's going to open up doors and take you to places that you never thought you could go before.
Absolutely. And honestly, that was not an answer I was expecting. Curiosity is definitely really good, like really just good trait to have overall. Because I mean, if you want to learn about something, you're going to do the work required to, get more information, and that's going to lead to other opportunities. And
yeah, and I can add another one. I can probably add the one that you thought I was going to say. Was a connection? Was that the answer you thought I was going to answer? Yeah, and I mean that would be a close second, because I think I believe that I'm on a mission to create a more deeply connected world. And when I say connected, to me, I mean it in two main ways. The first is learning how to connect deeper with yourself. Like, how do you unconditionally love yourself and step into your full levels of worthiness and kind of overcome some of those negative beliefs, negative stories that may be impacting you and your thoughts. And I think that just kind of creates a massive ripple effect, is when you have a relationship where you care about yourself and you have deep respect for yourself. And when you start there, it allows you to develop deeper relationships with other people, because if you're not valuing yourself, it kind of prevents you from showing up in the fullest capacity in your relationships. And so to me, when I say create a more deeply connected world, I think that if we can do those two things, if we can connect deeper with ourselves and develop deeper relationships with other people, it helps create this ripple of impact in the world where, I think lots of people are not living to the capacity that they could be, as if they were kind of giving themselves that permission and then pursuing other people. And so that's another thing I'd love to share more about, that I'm constantly beating the drum about, is how to leverage the power of connection through connecting with yourself and then opening the relationship to connect with other people to further your career, further your mindset, and take you to new levels that you never thought were possible before.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I actually really like the way that you put it too, especially when you say like connecting with yourself first, because it actually relates to a very famous economist. His name is Adam Smith. He thought of the invisible hand concept, which is basically where if you pursue your own personal interests, you in turn will inspire other people to pursue their personal interests, and it kind of leads to like that domino effect that you're.
Yeah, I love that.
So yeah, and I think that, by being able to pursue your own interests and being aware about it and how it can also help others reach your interests, it's a good way to really build yourself up and also help other people, especially in that like ideal world of everyone being interconnected.
100%. Yeah, I love that.
Absolutely. Um, so do you think that there are any problems right now that are stopping our like younger generations from being as curious as like they should be, or that, yeah, let's leave it like that.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the first thing is awareness. So I don't know if you're familiar with, there's 4 stages of learning. I might not get them perfectly, but give me a second and I'll remember them. The first stage of learning is unconscious incompetence. So this is when you don't even know what there is to know. Like you don't even know to ask, don't even know it's possible. You just like are completely unaware. But once you get that first seed of awareness and you understand that something is possible and you pursue that a little bit, the next stage is conscious incompetence. So this is basically like you suck at it, but you're at least aware that you suck at it, right? Like you're kind of like working out. It's like when you see a kid tying their shoe for the first time, they got their tongue sticking out and they get it done, but it's really, they're not the best at it. The next stage after that is conscious competence. It's where you're good at it, but you still have to be thinking really long and hard about it. And the last stage of learning is unconscious competence. It's when you're so good at something that you don't even really have to think about it anymore. And so I think that back to your initial question about like what the biggest thing is that people can understand, I think the biggest thing is just opening your eyes to that it's possible. I think so many, when I was young, I didn't realize that I had the whole world in front of me, that I could ask anyone anything and they might be able to respond. And I think that opening people's perspective to that, like my first mentor being Brenda Campbell, or working with Jonathan Levy and getting connected with Genius Network, or on my show today where I'm connecting with incredibly successful people that are changing the world. None of that would have started if I didn't realize that it was possible to begin with. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is that all these people that you look up to, all these people that you want to learn from, they are just human beings, and they're easily accessible if you know how to approach them in a right way that adds value. And I truly believe that you can shortcut years of trial and error if you learn how to connect with people and understand that connection is the key to unlocking lots of those things that you're looking for. So hopefully that answers your question, but I think the biggest thing is just knowing that it's possible. So I think you're doing an amazing thing starting the show, and hopefully opening some other people's eyes to the possibility of what happens when you can go down this rabbit hole.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And even like to even bring it a step further, I think that it's a matter of, especially with awareness, that the whole thing with like social media being a very determining factor in the way that people live their lives now. I think the best way to do it would be to step away from social media and really take in like the world for what it is, because social media can only tell you so much, or it'll tell you one side of the story. But when you're able to observe
I'll give everyone a challenge right now that changed my life. I haven't had social media on my phone since 2018. So like you can't find, like I literally, because it was this is literally what happened. Is I was studying abroad in Sweden, and I listened to a podcast with Jonathan, the guy that I had reached out to. This is before I was working with him. So I was just listening to this content, and he interviewed this guy named Noah Kagan, and Noah gave this challenge where he said, just as a challenge, just delete social media from your phone. Like I promise you can put it back if you want to, but the challenge is for 7 days, delete it and see what happens. And at the end, I give you full permission. You can put it back. You're not going to die. Your account doesn't have to get deleted. Just see what happens when you delete it for 7 days. And I deleted the apps back then, and I just haven't put them back since. Like there's really, to me, my phone is pretty much a source for listening to podcasts and like content, like powerful content, and like obviously texting my wife and my friends, but that's pretty much it. It's like I've deleted all social media. I've turned off all notifications. Like for a while, my friends made fun of me because the only way to get a notification on my phone was by sending me a Venmo. So sometimes they would send me like a cent or two just to get a notification on my phone. But I think it's really important that, kind of tying into the curiosity thing, it's like you design your environment around what's important to you. And if you're designing if your phone is an environment, if your phone is designing all this distraction and all this disruption in your day-to-day life, like you can't be in a state of curiosity when other people are controlling what you're looking for. So like, I think being very intentional about the content that you consume and the way that you organize your environment is really important.
Yeah, and honestly, those are all really good points, especially with designing, like setting up yourself for success. Like it's gonna involve making some of those sacrifices. Like, okay, maybe don't necessarily need to be on Facebook or TikTok as long. And I think that's especially a bigger problem nowadays, and even back in the day, because with how prevalent social media became. And I think that it's really interesting to see like the dynamics of how how our younger people interact with not only like others around them, but just their environment in general.
Mhm.
Like you might notice people nowadays just staring down at their phone and not even really looking where they're going, or they might
Mhm.
pass up events because they're on social media. So I really do like appreciate that idea to think that our generation just, in a way, they need to step away from social media, um,
Can't replace
because
that human to human connection. Yeah, it's really important.
yeah, nothing is ever better than face to face.
Mhm.
And
100%.
it might seem a bit contradictory because we're using Zoom, but
Hey man, but you like there's pros and cons to everything, but like
oh yeah,
you can connect with anyone anywhere in the world, and so yeah, you're right, it is that balance. But if you're making technology work for you, not against you, and you're intentional
yeah,
about it, that's really where the power lies.
absolutely. And technology is a really big factor as well, because technology creates everything around us. So, being able to utilize it not only to learn about a subject, but also to develop a passion and a love for a subject
Yeah.
is
I
what really creates its purpose.
Can I go back to something that we were talking about
Oh
before?
yeah,
I realize I have another just to build on this. Like I have another
yeah,
kind of not argument, but supporting comments about why curiosity is so important. Like I think
right.
the next 10 years are just going to be something that like society has never seen before, especially with all this AI stuff that's coming out, like Chat GPT, Google's releasing Bard and all that kind of stuff. And it's like the most important skill set, I think, going back is curiosity, because it's no longer about knowing an answer to a question. It's knowing how to ask good questions, and knowing how to ask good questions is a function of curiosity, right? So it's like if school no longer has to teach coders how to code because AI can do it better, the only thing preventing you and going to that next level is understanding the correct questions to be asking and interfacing with the AI that will get you to what you want. And so I think the curiosity of like turning AI into a coach for you is just transformational. Like I think like that's one of the biggest use cases that I've gotten from Chat GPT, is like turning it into a feedback mechanism and like helping me to kind of share, hey, this is what I'm looking for, what do you think about this, and like how can I improve this? And so that's all a function of curiosity and learning how to ask more effective questions. I think a question clearly defined is like solving half the problem. There's some quote that's something along those lines, but I think that's really, really important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when it comes that's like you want to gain, like if there's something that like you are into and you want to develop yourself in like that area, say if I like football a lot, I'm gonna have to ask the really good questions. I can't just ask the basic, how do I play? Like
Mm-hmm.
might want to ask like, oh, how do I make the plays? Or, things
Yeah.
along that.
Or because then going back to the stages of competence, like once
Yeah.
you're at a certain level, you can ask more specific questions that will add to another level of clarity. Especially you'll learn this as you develop your interviewing skills. It's like if you ask unspecific questions, you get unspecific answers. And so learning how to ask like really targeted questions is a really powerful skill set. And like the more intentional that you get with the questions that you ask, it unlocks new worlds of possibilities every time you open your mouth with an effective question.
Absolutely. And I also think there's actually another factor, like in addition to curiosity, I think they kind of both go hand in hand. And I think that it's ambition. I think that your ambition, in a way, does fuel your curiosity, and your curiosity will refuel your ambition, and it kind of goes back
Yeah,
and forth, back and forth.
I agree.
Um, so then this kind of leads me to like my next question, where obviously there's some people that have more ambition than the others. Everyone does have equal playing field, but just some people are more willing to go through those long nights, probably alone, but building themselves up to be successful. So my question to you is, what besides ambition do you think sets that line between people that really want to go get it and the people that, in a way, just say that they want to get it?
Yeah. So I'm gonna pull up a quote that I kind of have been thinking a lot about lately. So there's this book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, and he
Okay.
was, somebody that survived the Holocaust and concentration camps and that kind of stuff. And like one of the things that he noticed is that the people that were most likely to survive concentration camps, like they had a goal. They had something that was sustaining them, that was going to be after they got through the concentration camp. And so I'm going to read this quote. This is from A Man's Search for Meaning, but like Let me find this specific spot. It says, what a man actually needs is not a tensionless state, but rather the striving and struggling for a worthwhile goal, a freely chosen task. What he needs is not the discharge of tension at any cost, but the call of a potential meaning waiting to be fulfilled by him. So going back to your question about like ambition, I think a big part that hangs people up, that kind of inhibits that ambition, is like, we think that we need to have it all figured out, right? Like you feel like you need to have your life purpose and all this kind of stuff. And like, once you have your life purpose figured out, that'll help you pursue goals more effectively and that kind of stuff. But the problem with like the life purpose is that it's like, it's really intimidating. Like, and I think your purpose can change throughout life. And so what I think that quote is getting at is like, sometimes we think that we want this state of like no stress, like tension, like a tensionless state, like he said, but that's actually not what you want. Is you want like the pursuit and the struggle of having and not having on the way to a worthwhile goal. And like, if you keep pursuing these small contextual purposes, it will give more and more clarity as you move forward. So I think that that hopefully it doesn't, I think it prevents lots of people because they feel like they need to have it all figured out to get started, but you really don't. Like I admire, again, so much of what you're doing right now is because you don't have to have it all figured out. You just wanted to get your first few guests on, and here you are recording a show. And like, as you continue to ask more questions, you're going to get clearer and clearer. But like, your contextual purpose right now doesn't have to be some life altering mission. It's literally just like recording a first few episodes, and anyone can do that. And I think that the more momentum you get, the stronger that you will be. And so if anybody, if that is resonant with people, I would encourage anyone to go check out the book, Be Your Future Self Now by Dr. Benjamin Hardy. I've interviewed him on my show as well, but that's like one of the things he talks about is like getting connected with the future version of you. And like, once you learn how to connect with the future version of you, it really adds a lot more clarity to your present state. Because the last comment I'll make on this, because I heard another guest share this and it got really real for me, is if I said to you, Kevin, can you imagine the version of you 10 years from now? Like, can you kind of picture what you were like 10 years ago?
A little bit, yeah. Like I can vaguely remember. Like,
yeah, okay. We'll say 5 years ago, whatever, 5 years ago, whatever it was. Like, was that person a different person than you are now?
Absolutely.
Do you think today you could maybe act in some of the old ways that you were, if you were intentional about it? Could you kind of maybe start thinking a little bit and acting of that old version of you if you tried? Do you think that would be possible?
Honestly, I think it'd be it would be possible, but it wouldn't be probable. Like,
yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
But the thing is like, so like that version of you is like a thing that exists. Like, you can easily jump into that. You can easily do the same moving forward. You can be intentional about a future version of you and act from that future state, just as you could act from a past state that you've already existed. And so that's like another thing that I've been really intentional about is, being intentional about who my future self is, because like, once you're clear on who that future version of you is, you can start acting from that future perspective, and that opens up lots of doors for opportunity as well.
Absolutely. And I think it even relates to like the quote that, it's not the destination that matters, it's the journey. And I think it's a really powerful, like really quote when you think about it, because I think so many people get wrapped up in like what the end goal is, that they forget that they have to love everything that they're doing in the moment as they build up towards that goal.
Yeah.
So
100%.
I think that's a really interesting point. And it's not to say that you can't like try to keep your future self in mind, but I wouldn't let that be the main focus of what you try to do. Like, in a way, it's kind of making those baby steps that you're taking your main passion, and then letting those kind of build you up and flow like a river.
Yeah, 100%. One of my favorite quotes that inspired my podcast, it goes a little bit to what you were just saying, but it's like the quote by Jim Rohn: become a millionaire not for the $1 million, but for what it will make of you to achieve it. So it's like, it's not about the end destination, it's about the pursuing something, and what you learn along the way. So you're absolutely right that the journey is just critical, and enjoying and being present in the journey, even though it you want the end outcome, like being grateful in every moment is really the most important part.
Absolutely. And, I will admit too, like I was guilty of kind of doing this in the past, where I would really think about the kind of person that I wanted to be and necessarily what it would take to get there. However, after meeting you, it made me kind of take a step back and remember that I don't only carry like where I want to go, but I've also carried where I've been and what I've
Hmm.
learned.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's why, like, honestly, I think this is a really great opportunity, because now I'm hoping to help other people open up their eyes and really focus on what they love doing, but also being able to help other people do what they love to do.
Yeah, I love that, man. Super excited for you.
Absolutely. Thank you. So do you have any questions for me at all, actually?
Tell me a little bit. Well, I think it might be interesting for you to share. You shared a little bit in the intro, but like, tell me a little bit more about your contextual purpose. Then, like, what are some of the milestones that you're looking forward to now? Is there specific guests that you're looking at getting on, and maybe I can share some insights on kind of getting guests on my show, and that might be valuable.
Yeah. So I was actually attempting to make the goal of beating about 10 episodes by summer. And that's just been a goal I've been sticking to. So I've been slowly but surely expanding my network a little bit more. So I've actually connected with Paul Plackett through Wendell, who is my mentor from the Rotary Club. He's actually working with the Bucks right now, so there might be future
Awesome.
opportunities there. But yeah, I just wanted to bring in people from various backgrounds so that it's not all kind of like the same thing. And honestly, seeing like the way that you started off and where you are now, it really puts into perspective how different everyone's journey is. But
Mhm.
it's also really interesting to see how, despite how different our journeys are, how they all in a way interconnect at the end.
There's I think it's by Ram Dass. There's a quote. We're all just walking each other home. Like at the end of the
Yeah.
day, that's what it's all about. Like, I mean, you're right. We all take different paths, but at the end of the day, being human is being human. And so enjoying that human experience is really important. And whatever vehicle you choose to enjoy your human experience is really important. But as long as you're intentional about it and are conscious about it, I think that's really the key.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the intention, the ambition, and the curiosity are all like just very important factors to have. So I want all my viewers, to keep that in mind as well as you start to think about some of the goals that you want to achieve. So,
Yeah.
being intentional about not only what you are doing now, but also what you might want to do in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Love that. Yeah, I think I mean, I'm just, like I said, I'm really excited for you and the journey that you're heading out. Would it be help? I'll plant the seed and you can tell me if you want to go here, but like, if
Yeah.
you enjoyed the presentation that I gave that when we met, like, I'd be happy to share my magic connection method process too, if that would be good for your listeners, or maybe a reminder for you as well.
You know what? Absolutely. Like, I think that would be an amazing opportunity. Now, I want my viewers to really pay attention to this, because this man is going to be teaching Jedi mind tricks.
Jedi mind
So
tricks. Yeah, no.
go
Awesome.
ahead and take it away.
Yeah. So, I guess a little bit of context. I'll share another quick story, and then I'll dive into like the process. But I'll go back to like the kind of, I was 16 years old. So again, kind of still in the free lunch program, trying to figure some things out. And I had the opportunity to participate in a high school club called DECA, and there was a competition for entrepreneurship. And I'm like, my ears perked up, because it's like I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I figured, why not compete in this? So I wrote a business plan for a food truck, and I called it the Sizzling Ninja. So I was 16 years old, had my business plan for the Sizzling Ninja, and I worked on this business plan day and night, and got to compete at state with it. And I gave my presentation that I'd been working so hard on. And then I was sitting in the auditorium waiting for the results. And, they have the person that's listing off the names, and they announce the third place winner. And, my hands are getting super, super sweaty now. And then they announce the second place winner. And then there's that moment when you're like, oh my God, did I do all this and not even get on the podium, or did I take first place? And then he announced Brandon Fong, and I found out that I took this first place in state with this Sizzling Ninja food truck business plan. And so I was on a high for the next few days, until I got to it was a few days later, and I sat down with my advisor for this club, Mrs. Fisher, and she brought in all the other people that had competed well at the state level, and told us that we had qualified for the international level. And so she slides this packet across the table that shares the details of the itinerary and all this kind of stuff. And so I'm excited. And then I get to the bottom and it shows the cost of the trip. It was like $1,050.80. And then I'm like, crap, like that's expensive. I'm 16 years old. I'm scooping custard at Kopp's Custard in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for $7.25 an hour. Yeah, good custard. But yeah, so I was like, how the heck am I going to be able to pay for this? And so this is where my dad knew Brenda Campbell, who we know as a mutual connection, Kevin, but Brenda was a CEO of a nonprofit organization that's called Secure Futures. And he said, well, if Brenda does all this fundraising, maybe she'll be able to teach you how you could fundraise for this trip. And so what Brenda did is she saw my business plan and she told me one thing that completely transformed my life. But she said, Brandon, if you ask for money, you'll get advice. But if you ask for advice, you'll get money. And at first, when I heard that, it didn't really fully make sense. But she says, don't worry, like I'll show you what this means. And so what she did is she introduced me to local business people, and I had the opportunity to connect with them. And she says, what I want you to do is share your business plan and ask for feedback on it. And then once you've given your presentation, ask them if they might be willing to contribute to your trip. And so sure enough, like I do one presentation and it's like $100, they donate $100. And I do another presentation, they donate $200. And I'm like, oh my God, like I can do one presentation and make, get a $100 donation for like 20 minutes of my time. This is incredible. And so I kept doing this. And then it was like a week left until I had to go to the trip, and I was still like $500 short. And Brenda shares with me, she's like, I have one other person that I can't believe I didn't introduce you to him. His name is Kevin Kowalski. And so she introduces me to Kevin. I do the same presentation. And the only thing that was different at the end of this presentation than the other ones is he said, how much do you have left to pay for your trip? And I was like, well, the trip's in like a week. I have like $500 left. And so he just kind of smiled and he pulled out a checkbook, and I saw him writing on it, and I didn't want to be rude. So I didn't want to like stare, but he puts it in an envelope and then says, like, good luck. I really enjoyed your presentation. And of course, the first thing I do when I walk through the doors, I rip open the check, and he wrote me a check for $500. And in that moment, I knew I was going to be able to go to this international competition. And so that experience transformed my life, not because I didn't place in the international competition, but it was what Brenda taught me about learning how to connect with people. If you ask for money, you get advice. If you ask for advice, you get money. And so later on, I learned an intricacy to this, and I'll share it with you now. But I interviewed somebody on my show. His name is John Levy, and he wrote this book called You're Invited. And he is the founder of this company called The Influencers. And basically what happened is he developed this relationship building technique where he invites really, really high level people to his apartment in New York City to cook him dinner. And so it's this crazy, funny experience where he has got really high level guests. They all come together, and the kind of the nuance to his approach is you're not allowed to say your last name or what you do. So they're like really high level people, and they're all making dinner together. And then at the end of the night, they play this game where they reveal who they are. And so at the end of the day, you found out that you were just making guacamole with like a Nobel laureate, or like, you were sweeping the floor with somebody that was an Olympian. And he even had like Ewan McGregor from Star Wars or however else him, like attend his meetings. And so all of that to say as a tangent, one of the things that John Levy talks about when building relationships is this principle called the IKEA effect. And this relates to the quote that Brenda had taught me. But essentially, the IKEA effect it states that I'll just put it this way. People value IKEA furniture more because they had to invest their time, energy, and effort into building it. And so it's the same principle as with Build-A-Bear. Why can Build-A-Bear charge $8 bajillion for a stuffed animal? It's because the kid goes in and they pump the stuffing in it, they put the heart in it, they invest effort into it. And so we naturally value the things that we put effort into. And the same thing goes for relationships. That's why I realized that all these people were investing in me, is because they had invested their time, energy, and effort. And I was super grateful for them. And they ended up wanting to invest even more, and they were able to contribute to my trip. And so I think that really, really important thing for people to understand is that sometimes you feel like you are taking when you are a mentee, but like if you really go out and you execute and you take action and you show you're grateful and you show the results of the things that you implemented, that feels good. And that's investment. That's the key effect at play, is like they are exchanging value. And so if I can go back a little bit in our conversation and just say, this is the unconscious competence stuff, is like you can add a ton of value by being somebody that takes advice seriously and like approaches someone and like actually implements what these mentors are sharing with you. And so all of that as a setup is to say that as a result of what Brenda taught me, as a result of what I learned from Jonathan Levy and working for his company, and as a result of now spending almost 3 years on my show, bringing on incredibly successful humans, from sharks on Shark Tank to the man that invented the cell phone, to 9-figure entrepreneurs, to the FBI hostage negotiators. Like, I developed this process called the Magic Connection Method that anyone can use to reach out to people and develop relationships with them. So that was a long preamble, Kevin, and I apologize. And I'll still share the methodology, but if there's anything that you wanted to add on top of that, I'll turn it back over to you for a second.
You really hit everything out of the park, especially with like the analogy between like Build-A-Bear and like your network. Folks, the biggest thing to really take away from here is connection is going to be your best friend. It's going to be your lover. It's going to be your savior. Really just get out there and connect with people, but also be really intentional with how you do it. Like, you don't want to connect with people and waste their time, because no one likes to get their time wasted. So when you are connecting with people, really find ways to A, invest in yourself, so that B, you're able to show them that their investment wasn't a waste. Because
100%.
These people they're busy people. It's like, even Brandon, he's a very busy guy, but he took time out of his day to come onto the show, and we can really appreciate him for that.
Yeah, but of course. And I'll just build on this too, because like some people might be listening and say, okay, I don't have a podcast. Well, first of all, you could be like Kevin and you could start a podcast, or you could start a show, or whatever it is. But like the other thing too is this doesn't have to be rocket science. Like here's an example of the IKEA effect at play. Is like, let's say you're listening to another podcast and this person had written a book and they seemed really incredible. So you could reach out to them and just tell them how much you appreciated the interview and say, hey, I have one specific question I'd love to ask you. Would you be opposed to me asking you a quick question? Usually people aren't opposed to it. You could just ask. If you ask a very clear question in an email and they just gave you one piece of advice, that's a mentorship starting to form right there. Is like, you just asked one question. It didn't require much time on the other person, but if you were well thought out about it, and then you went and you executed on that simple thing that they helped provide you clarity on, now they're going to be more willing to spend more time with you because you asked a very intelligent, clear question to begin with. They invested in you and you went back and you showed that you took initiative. Now that might open to a stronger version of the IKEA effect, and like it can turn into a stronger relationship. So like, I want to make sure that people get examples, because like this doesn't have to be as crazy as getting a full-blown mentorship from the start. It doesn't have to be as crazy as starting a podcast. It can literally start from sending one email, and that can transform the way that you start this kind of stuff. So just another really cool comment there.
Absolutely. And you really, again, you hit the nail with the hammer. It's just a matter of don't let yourself get overwhelmed by, this person is, so-and-so. Like, really just kind of put that aside and be like, they're a human. They want to be able to help you out. So ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. Yeah, more than likely than not, they want to. And it's just like you said, people, people want to help. So even like the biggest celebrities are just people. So, if you come to them as people instead of like what their title is, what their brand is, it really separates you from other people.
Yeah, that's very, very, very important distinction. And I'm glad that you brought that up, Kevin, because it's like the minute that you put someone on a pedestal, it gets really awkward, right? So if you're just like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm talking to you, blah, 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 or like you're kind of like, it makes this really weird dynamic. Whereas if you can come across, they're mentoring, you need to show them the respect. But like, if you put people on too high of a pedestal, it creates a weird dynamic. So there's a fine line between showing respect for someone that's way further ahead of you, but not being a fanboy, fangirl that makes the dynamic awkward. And so it is important that you have that respect, but you are, not stepping the line too much. So yeah, that's incredibly important.
Yeah, absolutely. And that again, that's a really good explanation. But yeah, why don't you go ahead and explain to the viewers a little bit more about your Jedi mind tricks? I'm sure they want to be able to use the Force someday.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Here we
you
go.
see,
Some young Padawans today.
yeah, that's the
Let's do it.
Force.
Yeah. So I developed this 3-part process I teach called the magic connection method. And so if you're listening to this right now and maybe you're getting inspired, you're jumping from that stage where you want to maybe start developing these relationships and connecting with people, what does it look like if you're just staring at a blank cursor on a page with an email draft? Like, what do you say to someone that you might want to reach out to? And so this 3-part process will kind of eliminate that blank cursor syndrome, because you'll at least have a framework, a template that you can use to start these relationships. So it's really easy because I turned it into an acronym, and it's AVE. So it's like an avenue to a relationship. So the first part is appreciation. The second part is value. And the third part is end with a question. So that's just the high level overview, and I'll go through each of them. So the first part is appreciate. So my email inbox right now, or LinkedIn or whatever it is, this is very common these days. Is like you get these people that are literally just copying and pasting messages, and you could tell that they're not even caring about actually connecting with you. It's like, hey, I saw, Brandon, you're wearing a yellow shirt. That's great. It's just like, there's nothing substantive to it. And it doesn't set up the relationship right. So what you want to do is the exact opposite of everything that you see all these other people doing. Is you want to take the time to actually care about the person that you are reaching out to. And it's a very stupidly simple thing, is just show respect to them as a human. So the way that you can do this is this formula I developed. It's called the love plus specific formula. So very easy. And I'll maybe use this interview as an example. You can say, if you were reaching out to me, you could say, hey, Brandon, listen to the episode with Kevin Simmons. I loved the interview, and I specifically liked the story that you shared about connecting with Brenda Campbell and how that opened the doors for you in your career. That wasn't, just very simple. So loved is something very specific. You cannot copy and paste that message to anyone else but me. And I would know that you would actually listen to the episode, because you could say a mistake that I see people make is not being specific enough. So it's like, hey, love the episode that you did. And it's like, okay, that's an attempt at being specific, but I can't even really tell that you did it. Like I got an email yesterday, and sometimes I get a little cranky with some of these people, but this person was like, love the content on your show. I do XYZ. Let me help you with it. And it's like, I know they didn't actually listen to the show. They just are sending this email to everyone. And so I responded back and was like, great, since you love the show so much, please leave a review. Because I know that they probably didn't actually leave a review. But so you don't want to be that person. You actually want to take the time to show that you cared about them. So loved this, specifically liked this. So that's the appreciation line. Just 1 to 2 sentences showing that you took the time to research them. And it could be from their bio, it could be from their site, it could be from the job that they do, or a presentation you heard them give, or a book that they wrote, or a podcast they were on, something specific. So that's the appreciation part. Is there something you want to add to that, Kevin?
Yeah, actually, speaking of books, this is actually how I really got to change my mindset, guys. So Brandon here is actually an author. He actually wrote the book called Leverage. I don't have my copy nearby me now, but it's a fantastic book. I highly recommend it. And honestly, he really outlines a lot of what we're talking about here, such as building up your connections and also finding ways to develop yourself to be a professional, because it's a competitive world out there. So I can really appreciate it, especially with, I forgot the name of the method, but being able to wake up at 4:30 in the morning, doing some writing, doing some exercising. I've actually been trying it out, and it's really been doing wonders for me.
That's awesome. I definitely don't get up at 4:30 anymore, but when I was writing that book, I was definitely getting up at 4:30. It's good.
But yeah, and that's a good example of the love plus specific formula, guys. It doesn't have to be rocket science. It could be something as simple as maybe a piece of advice that they gave that resonated with you, or maybe there was something funny they did in one of their videos. The possibilities are endless. You just have to, again, be intentional with it.
100%. Yeah. So that's the appreciation line. So you've already distinguished yourself from 99% of anybody else by doing that one thing. So even if you don't take and implement anything else from this show, if the next time you reach out to someone, you just take the time to appreciate them, you're going to get much better results. So the next part is the value. So what is the value that you can provide? And so value is in the eye of the beholder. So like there's many different examples I could give here, but I think the most applicable example that I could give was how I ended up getting my job with Jonathan Levy right out of college. So I was like 20-year-old college student, no real life experience outside of, running some student organizations, that kind of stuff. And here's Jonathan Levy, 7-figure entrepreneur, 100,000 students in his online courses, TED Talk, podcaster, all that kind of stuff. What value do I have to provide to this guy as somebody that doesn't even have any experience? Well, you actually have a lot. And so one of the things that I did is I was like, okay, thinking from Jonathan's perspective, what are the things that he could use help and support with that I might be able to contribute? And so basically what I did is I went on his site, I listened to his podcast, I subscribed to his email list, and I went through his email sequences, and I came up with I think it was 3 different projects that I could work on that I was willing to do for free and offer that to him. So the email went something along the lines of hey, Jonathan, again, I'll just review a little bit. Hey, Jonathan, actually, this is tying it together because I listened to the Noah Kagan episode that I mentioned before that got me to get off my cell phone. But I said something along the lines of hey, Jonathan, listen to the episode you did with Noah Kagan. I haven't used my phone for social media in months now, and it's transformed my life as a result of that. So besides wanting to share that with you and express my gratitude, I wanted to run an idea by you. I came up with, after spending some time on your site, I came up with 3 specific projects that I would love to help and support you with, and I don't want to be paid for it. And so that was obviously off the top of my head and a not very eloquent way of saying it, but you can make it sound a little bit better. But that was the gist of it, is I took the time to do some research on what Jonathan needed support with. I offered to do it for free, and he could tell that I was, somebody that was taking initiative. And so he responded to me literally the next day and said, yeah, that sounds amazing. Let's hop on a call. And I was freaking out because I was really respecting this guy, but I got on a call with him and he loved the proposal that I sent to him. And he says, well, this is incredible, but I don't believe in free work. I still want to pay you for it. So I ended up he offered me a paid position, even though I did it for free, but I was very intentional. And I said, no, I do not want to be paid for it, even though you're offering it. I really appreciate that. And so if I do this project and it works out, then we can discuss maybe working together in the near future. But if not, then, we can part our separate ways. So it was very little risk on his end, very high, reward of potentially getting some free work done for him. So that was one way to do it. But there's so many different ways that you can do it if you get creative. For me, again, I'm not, I don't want to put you in the position where it's oh, I don't have a podcast, but I also at one point didn't have a podcast. I also at one point didn't have a book. So these are all assets that I built up from nothing as well. But now today, anytime I want to connect with someone, I have a platform that I can reach out to them and say, hey, these are the people that have been on my show. It's a top 2% ranking podcast. Here's people having a great experience on it. I would love to feature you. That's a great value add to pretty much anyone. And so you can add value in terms of relationships. You can add value in terms of time, especially as you're younger, you have lots of time to invest. You can help support them in many ways. So that's some ideas on how you can approach the value side of things. Anything you want to jump in on there, Kevin, before I go to the last part?
And again, with this, it doesn't necessarily have to be rocket science either. Literally, a lot of this stuff, it can literally be a very simple thing. It's just as long as you're showing the intention behind it.
Yeah. And I'll say too, there's another thing that I talk about in the book, called the cute student card. And it's really funny because I think that most students or most young people think they're at a disadvantage because they're young. But I think that it's the exact opposite, actually, is because think about this. If you're a 50-year-old and you're reaching out to another 50-year-old in your career, you're just another guy that's looking for help. But if you're a young, ambitious 20-year-old, it's they want to help and support wherever they can. And so you're actually at an advantage if you know how to ask. And so that's another thing that I would encourage people to do is you can leverage the outreach, and you might be surprised even if you don't have a way of clearly adding value quite yet. The worst thing that people can say is no. That was the most valuable lesson I learned from my dad. It's what's what harm? It's not gonna, you're not taking megabytes from the internet or whatever, the gigabytes from you're not, the worst case scenario is you craft an email and you send it up into the ether and nothing happens. Try it again. So that's a good attitude to have about this.
Absolutely. And honestly, guys, this is killing for me because I'm I use this cute student card as well, saying I'm a current student. But I actually did reach out to a couple of people and like about possible advice or internships or anything like that, trying to build connections. And some of them just never responded. But you just kind of keep going about your way, and eventually another door will open up. For every no, there's like 5 yeses. So
Yeah.
it's just
Did you follow up, Kevin? Did you follow up with them?
absolutely. I tried to, but I guess either they were too busy or like just things might have not be the best time for them.
Yeah.
But I still might continue to follow up just until the
Yeah,
answer.
keep following up. Like you'll be surprised. Like that's one of the biggest lowest hanging fruits is like don't be shy on the follow up, and people will admire your persistence if you do it in a good way, as long as you're not annoying about it. But like the first follow up might be like 3 or 5 to 7 days later, and it might be just as simple as like, hey Kevin, just bumping this to the top of your email inbox. Any chance you had a second to check this out, or something as simple as that. And then another version that I've learned from another guest on my show that I've started testing recently. Maybe I don't want to make this too complicated, but basically there's creative ways that you can do it. Like the one that I've been testing recently is called multiple choice. So like the email goes something along the lines of like, hey, following up with this on again, I realize that you might be totally busy. So I wrote out some options for you, and feel free to just choose the option that kind of works best. And like option A, you might say is like, I've been so busy, super sorry, I've been meaning to respond. I'm in like, let's have a conversation. B might be something like, I'm so sorry, I'm too busy right now, and I unfortunately don't have time. So basically you're thinking about all the objections they might have in their own head or potential responses, and you're laying that out in front of them. And like, sometimes my friend that initially taught me this, like, encourages you to take like a kind of a funny one for D, option D could be like, I'm just a small town girl living in a lonely world, or something like that, or just kind of some goofy thing just to kind of give people a chuckle. And so, that's another thing where I've gotten responses from that, and people will just say like, oh, thank you for this, like D, a combination of B and D, whatever it is, but it'll get them to respond. And then one final thing I'll toss in the follow-up is sometimes I'll follow up 30 or 60 days later, because maybe they're in the middle of a move, maybe their kid is sick, maybe there's so many just unknown factors that like you can be polite about and persistent about following up. That'll help a lot. So a little bit of a side tangent, but important.
Oh no, it's very important. You don't want to annoy the people that you're trying to connect with, because it'll turn the cold shoulder towards you. So yeah, kind of reaching out and being you can be consistent and persistent, but not annoying.
Yeah,
there's a thin line between
100%. 100%. Well, let me give the last kind of part of the framework, and then you can kind of tell me where you want to go from here. We can maybe wrap things up or whatever works for you. So again, just as a high level overview, we wrote something that we appreciated about them. We use the love plus specific formula. We found something that we can add value, or a very clear ask that we have inside of the middle. Maybe it's a project that you identified, or a very clear question that you have, or an introduction you can make, or something along those lines. The last part is very simply end with a question. And so there's I used to teach this. I'm constantly testing and evolving, but there's several ways that you can go about this. One of the most important distinguishing ways that you can do this, I learned this from a good friend of mine, Michael Roderick, who's a mentor of mine, has been on my show. But one of the things he talks about is the difference between a direct ask and an indirect ask. Whereas like, if you ask a direct ask, it's kind of like, it puts people in an awkward position sometimes, because if you're coming, let me not make this confusing. The distinguishing factor is, if you found a way to add value to them, you can conclude with a direct ask. So like for me on my podcast, it's like, here's the value of the show. Would love to hear your thoughts either way, but what are your thoughts on being featured on the show? That's kind of a direct ask. Like, do you want to come on the show? But I'm coming from a perspective of adding a ton of value to them. So it's okay to make like a really direct ask. An indirect ask is a lot more powerful if you are looking for a favor from someone, or if you haven't set it up from the value perspective. Like, for example, a way that students could use this might be something along the lines of like, appreciation line, the middle, instead of value, you could say like, my goal right now is to get an internship at XYZ company, blah, 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 blah. the end with a question could be an indirect ask, which is something along the lines of like, do you happen to know, or let me give a really concrete example instead of this. Like, let's say you're trying to get connected with someone.
Yeah.
So it's like you saw this person was connected with someone on LinkedIn. And so you're like, hey, I saw you were connected to Kevin Simmons. A direct ask would be, can you introduce me to Kevin? That might be awkward because maybe they don't even know you. Maybe they're not in a position to make that introduction, but you can make an indirect ask and have it be a lot more effective. And you can say, do you happen to know the best way to reach out to Kevin? So now if they get that question, they might say, oh, I actually know Kevin. I'm happy to make that introduction. Or they can make it easier and say, I think this is his email and this is the best way to reach out to him. So having an indirect ask is something along the lines of like, do you have any ideas about how to X? And no one's ever going to say, no, I don't have any ideas, right? So it's like, it's kind of an easier way of saying it. But all that to say, you want to conclude your email with a clear question and like nothing after it. So an example would be for my show, like I said before, totally up to you, but would you be interested in me sending over next steps to feature you on the show? Or what are your thoughts about being featured on the show? Or if you're doing what I said before, you found a way to add value or boost, or you're asking for introduction, do you happen to know any ways that what would be the best way to connect with Kevin or something along those lines? But that's the idea, is that you want to have appreciation, value, and then end with a clear question at the end, and then make sure you're following up like we talked about before. But that should at least give everyone a framework for how you can start to reach out to these people.
And that's, and this is a really amazing strategy, guys. Trust me, I've actually used it against Brandon himself, and
nice.
Here we are. So really, if you, as you do tune in into the show, like make sure that you're paying attention to some of these things, because these are all very basic, but also very fundamental skills that you honestly need to have. Because if you don't, you're going to just seem like any of the other 99 million people that, my emails, people like Brendan or, whoever you're trying to get connected with. So really keep these thoughts in mind. And I think that, for the sake of time, we will actually ask you a final question before we end this show here. But Brendan, how are you defining your success today?
That's a great question, because I ask a version of this on the show for me. So success, I had on, I don't think this episode's come out yet, at least the time that we're recording this, but Gay Hendricks, he wrote the book called The Big Leap. And he asked this really, really powerful question that helped me to define what success means for me. But the question is something along the lines of like, imagine you're on your deathbed. How old do you think you are? And like, I'll just say 120 or 130, because I think lots of cool stuff is going to happen. But then someone comes in and says, Brandon, did you have a completely successful and fulfilling life? And I would say, yes, absolutely. And then in this hypothetical situation, this person then comes in and asks, what were the 3 to 5 things that made your life an absolute and complete success? So that was kind of like the setup for this thought, this question and the answer that I'll give you. So for me, the first thing for success is loving and caring for myself. I think that's, I think you do need to put the oxygen mask first. It's like loving and caring for myself at a very deep level. But then the next level after that is, am I the best husband that I can possibly be for my wife, Leah? So that would be like the next version of success is being a good husband. The beyond that would be being a good father. I'm not a father right now, but I know that being a father is really, really important to me. And then also success to me means constantly chasing my next level of success and fulfillment, or whatever that, or like the next evolution of my growth, right? Like not leaving anything on the table. And then the last thing success means for me is being savoring and being present in every moment. I had a guest on my show, how Rod shared this with me, and it really stuck with me. It's like the moment is really all that we have. So like, there's no such thing as a future. There's no such thing as a past, because those are both constructs. Like there's literally only right now. So like literally this is the best moment of my life, is talking with you, Kevin, because like where else could I be? It's like, because like the next thing is going to be, I'm going to go out and I'm going to give my wife a hug and a kiss after this, because I've been on the calls for a while, and that's going to be the best moment of my life then. And so I think just being really present and grateful in every moment is really, really important. But those are the main keys to my what success means to me is investing in connecting with myself, being a good husband, being a good father, constantly expanding and growing. And then the last one is being present and savoring every moment.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Brandon, for coming onto the show. Really appreciate having you here. And honestly, thank you for all the time and really all the advice. Like, guys, I cannot stress this enough. All this is very valuable. Well, invaluable, really, because not a lot of people know this kind of thing. So, the sooner that you jump on the gun, the sooner that you can set yourself up to reach, your own level of success. And I would like to, leave you all with a quote that I actually thought of. It's my senior quote from high school. But I said that life is like a sandwich. It's only as good as the ingredients that you put on it.
I like that. It's beautiful.
And
thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming onto this show, Brendan. Everyone, and thank you all for all your support. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to building up hope for the next generation. So without further ado, all of you have a wonderful night, and I'll see you later.
We'll see you later. Awesome. Thanks, man. I'll send you I won't end the recording. I'll end it when we're done, but it was a great job, man. I appreciate it. And I'm excited for you to continue to interview other people. So keep me in the loop. Absolutely.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much. If you'd like at any point, you can definitely reach out to me, especially if you're getting people like George Kuntz onto the show. Sure. We can even do a panel or, things like that. Like, I think would be awesome. Like, I'd love to have you back on the show as well, because I think you have of invaluable advice.
Thanks, man.
So
yeah, good stuff. So I will send you, I think you have like a Gmail, right? It's like Kevin Simmons at Gmail or whatever email I sent you here. So what I'll do is I'll upload the audio to a Google Drive folder.
Okay.
Do you have, if I put something in the chat right now, can you save it or should I text it to you?
You can try putting it in a chat and I can see if I can save it. Or
no, I'll just text it to you. That might be a lot easier.
That might be easier,
there's this. So I know you're using a setup for school. You're not on your computer or whatever, but like there's this thing because your audio, I don't know where you're set up, but this might help with like making your audio sound like studio quality. If I can come on. Adobe Best. So if you want to see if this might make your audio sound better, I'll put it in here. You can it's free. You can literally just drop an audio file and it does some AI magic and it makes you sound like you're in a freaking studio with $1,000 mic. It's kind of nuts.
Absolutely. So,
So it might be able to, like on your audio, if you publish the audio, it might be able to remove a little bit of the echo and that kind of stuff. But it's a good tool regardless you use it or not.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And also, if you can think of anybody else that would like, to be interviewed, obviously free of charge.
Yeah.
And I'd just love to build up more connections to get more episodes. The goal is to hit 10 before summer.
Have you reached out to Brenda? Because like I know you know her a little bit already. She might be a great guest as well.
Yeah, actually, I have been thinking about reaching out to her, and as well as Melissa. Really, all of the people from Rotary, I think, are all amazing candidates to get interviewed. So I think I'll definitely have to do a bit of research to kind of decide the best way I want to go about asking.
If you're interested in having Brenda, I can absolutely shoot her a text and I can, kind of connect you guys. I know you already know each other, but I could bump that a little bit. That might be great, especially because she was the one that started it all for me. So like she has incredible wisdom on the show. So I'd be happy to reach out to Brenda, and that might be a cool opportunity as a good start.
Yeah, I would really appreciate that. No, I would absolutely appreciate that.
Sweet.
And I cannot stress this enough. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I really look forward to not only learning more from you, but also being able to someday work beside you as well.
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm grateful. I'm grateful, and it means a lot that you enjoy the content. So it's good to picture a face sometimes when I record an episode, and I know that you're listening. So I'm glad that you've been enjoying the content that's been putting out there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's honestly been some of the best advice I've really ever gotten, because a lot of people would tell me like kind of the same things that we were talking about, but they wouldn't necessarily provide any direction or, like any kind of like guide to do it. Like not necessarily laying it down step by step, but
Mhm.
breaking it down in a way that it seems doable rather than kind of
Mhm.
being a very broad thing.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's just all appreciated.
Yeah,
Uh,
100%, man. Awesome.
yeah.
Good stuff. Well,
Um,
I'll shoot you the recording and that kind of stuff once I have it all uploaded. And
yeah.
yeah, don't be a stranger. And I'll text Brenda right now, and then we'll go from there.
Absolutely. I think what I'll do as well is I'll try to get set up with George Kuntz for the second episode.
Sweet.
So I'll figure out some stuff and then I'll see. If you would like, you can definitely do like a three-way panel or anything of the sort if you would be interested in something like that as
Yeah,
well.
I think it'd be good for you to kind of, it's just knowing, like for me, facilitating between two people, that adds a whole nother layer of complexity. So I think for you, it might be a good exercise for you to like learn how to do because I haven't even facilitated on the show multiple people, but I'm open to other ways I can support you. But I think that's I love the way that you're thinking about it. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's really cool that you got as one of your first guests, somebody that was in the Green Bay Packers. So that'll be important for us Wisconsinites.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've already been doing quite a bit of research on him as well. He actually wrote a book as well that I found very interesting.
Sweet.
He talks about his life after like the NFL, because he's gone down, a really interesting path of like drug addiction and things like that. So he's
Mm,
been battling that and kind of recovering out of that. So I'm really looking forward to the episode. And honestly, I think you'll love it.
sweet. Sounds good, man. I can't wait. I gotta jump here, but I'll send you all the stuff. And like again, like I'll end on this. Like I'm just excited that you're doing this, and I'm really proud of you. It's awesome.
Thank you so much. It really means a lot coming from you. But yeah,
For sure.
you enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And tell Lee I said hello as well.
Will
My
do.
best. Love you guys. But you have a wonderful day.
Sounds good. We'll catch you later, man. Bye.
Catch ya.